So I see the guy right away. He's got a t-shirt, #dad. And he tells me, can you take your shoes off, please? This is a shoe-free environment. Shoes don't come off. My shoes come on once a night. That's it. I know some of you aren't even feeling this right now because you do this to people. Don't do this. Do not do this to grown people. All right? You're sitting there going, well, what's wrong with that? We have people take their shoes off all the time. We have white carpet. Why you got white carpet? Why? So now I'm going to remove my shoes in front of two people I just met. Try and hold a conversation. It's strange. You're like, so how long have you lived here? So I dropped my shoes in the shoe farm. Now I'm walking around a stranger's house in my socks. Meeting other grown men in their socks. There's 4 guys in a sock circle. One guy came up, he was barefoot. I almost threw up in my mouth.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, Trump Tuesday, February the 3rd, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and President Trump. All that and more when I get back. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now, Varney and Company.
Everyone, and welcome to Varney and Company. It is a big news day. There is a lot going on. So we're going to start with the shutdown. Yes, it continues. President Trump has intervened. He's urging holdouts to back down. He says they're working hard to achieve a settlement. Speaker Johnson believes it will be settled soon. The Wall Street Journal says the deal in Iran is regime change. The Journal says with a military buildup and the destruction of Iran's nuclear facilities, the president has, quote, forged an opportunity, and this is his moment to seize it. Top aide Steve Witkoff meets Iran's foreign minister this week. To the markets. And first, let's go to Bitcoin. It is still well below 80,000. You're at 78.2 right now. And gold, still below $5,000 an ounce, 4,944. Silver, still below $100 an ounce, 87.69 there. The Dow coming in with a small loss. The S&P, a small gain. The Nasdaq, though, another fairly solid gain. That's in part because Palantir reported Monday, and investors really like their numbers. Record revenue, strong forecast for the future. That stock is now up 11%. Big gain. On the show today, a tariff deal with India. Instead of 25%, it will be 18% on Indian goods coming here. They have agreed to buy $500 billion worth of American products centered on energy. The president of Colombia arrives at the White House today. Gustavo Petro had called Trump a murderer. Then came the capture of Maduro in Venezuela. Then came an hour-long phone call with the president. And now, a White House meeting. We're going to follow up on Billie Eilish's statement that no one is illegal on stolen land. Turns out she has a multi-million-dollar home on the land of the Tonga Nation. We are not aware of any plan she has to give up her stolen land home. We cover it all on this Tuesday, February the 3rd, 2026. Varney and Company is about to begin.
And that was Varney and Company, Nonprofit News Now. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, some motivation.
Far too many of you worry way too much about other people and not enough about your fucking selves. You know how you get good at business? You worry about your own fucking shit. You know how you get good at your job? You worry about your own fucking shit. You know how you get in good shape? You don't worry about how many reps the other motherfucker in the gym is doing. You worry about how many reps you're fucking doing. If you're gonna run a business, do you think I sit in the fucking back room and talk to my key guys about what everybody else is doing? No, I don't fucking care. I don't care what anybody else is doing. I care what we're doing. I care if we're making the calls. I care if we're providing value. I care if we're making the best products. I don't give a fuck if anybody else is doing that. I care if we're doing that. And you know what? That's how you become a leader. That's how you become the industry leader. Because you're not following anybody else's lead. You're innovating a unique path of your own. When you spend your energy focusing on what other people are doing instead of executing on your own opportunities, you are setting yourself up to fail time and time again. And this goes against what society is, right? Society is all about gossip. It's all about talk. It's all about who's doing what. And it's never about worrying about what you're doing. Go to a fucking bar. What's everybody talk about? What their company's doing, what their boss is doing, what their coworkers are doing, what their aunt's doing, what their mom's doing, what their dad's doing. Nobody fucking cares, and it doesn't fucking matter. That's why you don't see successful people hanging out with people like that. Because they worry about their own shit, they worry about their own actions, they worry about what they execute on, and they worry about how they can get better at it.
You should be grinding and you looking at the score. The score is what it is. The score ain't about to change because you looked at it. Keep playing the game. Keep grinding. Keep working. And that other stuff will take care of itself. Everything has to do with you intending to win. If you make that shift, I'm going to win. We're going to play to win now. We're not playing to play. We're not playing to see how we do. We're not playing for fun. Once you decide to win, once you start getting some winning, you start changing. You talk different. You walk different. You can change you. You'd be surprised how good you'd be if you just decide to win. Be number one in your office. Number one in your region.
And don't get caught up in, well, I tried it 4 or 5 times and things didn't work out. If there's something that you want and you're hungry for it, you've got to do what is required.
Successful people stop negotiating the price in their life. You know what's stripping all your success? You keep negotiating the price you're paying. Man, all the work I'm putting in, it's not paying off. I don't see my family as much. I got to do all this. You start negotiating it all the time, and it's sapping all your damn energy. Successful people don't negotiate price, they negotiate worth. Could this be worth it to me to pay this? And once you decide it's worth it to win, it's worth it to be somebody, the negotiation stops. It might be year 2, 3, 4 before you get your big win, but you could decide now, I'm going to walk, talk, and be a different person. You decide that. You're the lead character in the story of your life. That's the decision. Decide now. You're going to keep negotiating the price, or can you not be bought?
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the Mossad.
Beirut, Lebanon, 1994. A funeral procession winds through narrow streets in the southern suburbs, a neighborhood known as the Dahiyeh. Hundreds of mourners walk behind a flag-draped coffin, chanting prayers and slogans. Women dressed in black weep openly. Men carry photographs of the deceased, a young fighter killed in clashes with Israeli forces near the border. The procession moves slowly, reverently, through streets lined with concrete apartment buildings, scarred by decades of civil war. Above, laundry hangs from balconies. Children watch from doorways. Shopkeepers pause their work to observe the passing cortege. This is a community that has buried many of its sons, and funerals have become rituals of grief and defiance, moments when the living honor the dead and renew their commitment to resistance. What no one in that crowd knows is that hidden within the procession are 5 men who do not belong. They wear the same dark clothing as other mourners. They carry the same photographs. They chant the same prayers in perfect Arabic. But they are not Lebanese. They are not Hezbollah supporters. They are Israeli operatives from Mossad's Caesarea unit, and they are not there to mourn. They are there to kill. The target walks 10 meters ahead of them. Imad Fayez Mughniyeh, 32 years old, Hezbollah's chief of external security operations. The man who planned the 1983 bombings of the U.S. Embassy and Marine barracks in Beirut, killing over 300 people. The man who orchestrated the kidnapping and murder of CIA Station Chief William Buckley, who was tortured for months before his death. The man who masterminded the hijacking of TWA Flight 847, during which U.S. Navy diver Robert Stetham was beaten and shot, his body dumped on the tarmac in Beirut. The man Israel has been hunting for over a decade, who has survived multiple assassination attempts through paranoia, operational security, and an almost supernatural ability to sense danger. But on this day, Mughniyeh has made a mistake. He has attended a funeral for one of his operatives, believing the crowd provides safety. He does not know that Israeli intelligence has been tracking this funeral for days, waiting for confirmation that he would appear. He does not know that the 5 mourners behind him have rehearsed this operation for weeks in a mock-up of these exact streets, built in a classified facility in the Negev desert. He does not know that beneath their traditional mourning clothes, they carry weapons designed to kill quickly and silently in crowded spaces. The procession turns a corner. The street narrows. Buildings press closer. The crowd compacts. Bodies pushed together by the confined space. This is the killing ground Mossad has chosen. In approximately 90 seconds, Imad Mughniyeh will be dead. The operation that will unfold has been years in planning, involving surveillance across 3 continents, recruitment of local assets who risked their lives to provide intelligence, and a level of audacity that even veteran Mossad officers considered borderline reckless. Because infiltrating a Hezbollah funeral procession in the heart of their stronghold, surrounded by armed fighters who would shoot suspected Israeli agents on sight, represented a degree of operational danger that few intelligence services would accept. But Israel had concluded that Mughniyeh represented a threat significant enough to justify extraordinary risks. His operations had killed hundreds of Israelis, Americans, and others. His networks extended across the Middle East, Europe, and South America. His relationship with Iranian intelligence provided Hezbollah with resources and expertise that made the organization far more dangerous than it would have been otherwise. And most critically, he was planning new operations that Israeli intelligence believed would involve attacks inside Israel itself, potentially using the networks he had built to smuggle operatives and weapons across the border. This is the story of how Mossad transformed a funeral into an execution chamber, how intelligence services exploit cultural rituals that communities trust, how 5 men walked into hostile territory with no escape plan beyond vanishing into chaos, and how one of the world's most wanted terrorists died surrounded by his own people, who never realized that assassins were standing among them until it was too late. Understanding how Mossad killed Imad Mughniya requires understanding who he was and how he became the most dangerous man Israel had never captured. Born in 1962 in Beirut's Shiite slums, Mughniya grew up in poverty and sectarian violence. His father died when he was young, leaving his mother to raise 6 children in a 2-room apartment where water came from a communal tap and electricity functioned sporadically. He watched his older brothers join Palestinian militant groups in the 1970s, learning from childhood that armed resistance was how the weak fought the strong, how the dispossessed challenged those who possessed everything. Lebanon in the 1970s was descending into civil war, a conflict that would last 15 years and kill over 150,000 people. Beirut, once called the Paris of the Middle East, became a patchwork of militia-controlled neighborhoods where crossing invisible boundaries could mean death. Mughniya's neighborhood was controlled by various Palestinian factions who used Lebanese territory to launch attacks against Israel. Israeli retaliation came in the form of airstrikes, commando raids, and artillery bombardments that killed civilians and fighters indiscriminately, creating cycles of violence that fed on themselves. At 15, Mughniya joined Force 17, a Palestinian militant group associated with Yasser Arafat's Fatah faction. He was too young to be a fighter, so they used him as a messenger, carrying communications between safe houses and weapons caches. He learned how armed groups operated, how they moved through hostile territory, how they hid from Israeli surveillance, and how they planned operations with limited resources against a vastly superior enemy. He learned to think tactically, to identify vulnerabilities in security systems, to exploit moments of complacency that even professional security forces could not entirely eliminate. His real education came after the 1982 Israeli invasion of Lebanon, when Israeli forces occupied Beirut and drove the PLO leadership into exile. The invasion was Israel's attempt to destroy Palestinian military infrastructure in Lebanon and install a friendly Christian government that would sign a peace treaty. But the invasion created something Israel had not anticipated: Hezbollah, the Party of God, a Shiite resistance movement backed by Iran that would prove far more dangerous than the Palestinian groups it replaced. Mughniya joined Hezbollah's military wing in 1983, bringing skills and experience that made him valuable despite his youth. He understood explosives, having learned from Palestinian bomb makers. He understood urban warfare, having fought against Israeli forces during the invasion. And he understood intelligence work, having spent years observing how successful operations were planned and executed. Hezbollah's leadership recognized his potential and sent him to Iran for advanced training with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which was establishing Hezbollah as its proxy in Lebanon. The training in Iran lasted 6 months and transformed Mughniya from a street fighter into a professional operative. Iranian instructors, many of whom had been trained by Western intelligence services before the 1979 revolution, taught him surveillance techniques, operational security, interrogation methods, and the art of building networks that could survive penetration by enemy intelligence. They taught him how to compartmentalize operations so that no single arrest could compromise entire networks. They taught him how to use fear as a weapon, how psychological warfare could accomplish objectives that military force could not achieve. And they taught him patience, the understanding that successful operations often required months or years of preparation. When Mughniya returned to Beirut in late 1983, he immediately applied his training. On April 18, 1983, a suicide truck bomb destroyed the U.S. Embassy in Beirut, killing 63 people, including 17 Americans. The attack was Hezbollah's announcement that American forces supporting the Christian-dominated Lebanese government would pay a price for their intervention, 6 months later, on October 23rd, 2 more truck bombs struck the U.S. Marine barracks and the French military headquarters, killing 241 American servicemen and 58 French paratroopers. The attacks were the deadliest single-day loss for the Vietnam War and forced President Reagan to withdraw American forces from Lebanon within months. Mugniya planned both operations. He selected the targets, recruited the suicide bombers, built the explosive devices, and coordinated the attacks with precision that shocked Western intelligence agencies. The bombs were massive, over 12,000 pounds of explosives in each truck, enough to collapse reinforced concrete buildings. The timing was simultaneous, demonstrating coordination between cells that operated independently until the moment of attack. And the security around the planning was so tight that American and Israeli intelligence had no advance warning, despite having extensive surveillance networks in Beirut. The success of these operations established Mugniya's reputation within Hezbollah and Iranian intelligence. He became the organization's chief of external security operations, responsible for planning attacks against Israeli and Western targets outside Lebanon. He established networks across Europe and South America, recruiting operatives from Lebanese diaspora communities who could travel on Western passports and operate without attracting attention. He built relationships with other militant groups, including Palestinian factions, Irish Republican Army, and various Latin American guerrilla organizations, creating a global network that could provide logistical support, weapons, and safe houses. Between 1983 and 1992, Mugniya orchestrated a campaign of kidnappings, hijackings, and bombings that made him one of the most wanted men in the world. His operatives kidnapped Western hostages in Beirut, including CIA Station Chief William Buckley, who was tortured for information about American intelligence operations in Lebanon. Buckley's torture, which lasted months and was recorded on videotape sent to the CIA, provided Hezbollah with detailed knowledge of American intelligence networks in the Middle East. His death in captivity was one of the CIA's most humiliating failures, a reminder that even senior intelligence officers were vulnerable when operating in hostile environments. In 1985, Mugniya planned the hijacking of TWA Flight 847, which departed Athens bound for Rome, carrying 153 passengers and crew. His operatives seized control of the aircraft, forced the pilots to fly to Beirut, and held passengers hostage for 17 days while demanding the release of Shiite prisoners held by Israel. During the hijacking, they beat and murdered Robert Stetham, a U.S. Navy diver, shooting him in the head and dumping his body on the tarmac. The hijacking received worldwide media coverage, with journalists reporting live from Beirut airport as negotiations dragged on. Eventually, Israel quietly released the prisoners, and the hijackers disappeared into Beirut's southern suburbs, where Hezbollah controlled territory and could provide protection. Israeli intelligence had been tracking Mugniya since the 1983 embassy bombing. His file at Mossad headquarters contained hundreds of pages documenting his operations, his networks, his travel patterns, and his security protocols. They knew he rarely spent more than one night in the same location. They knew he never used phones, communicating only through trusted couriers. They knew he employed multiple bodyguards and traveled in convoys of vehicles that changed routes constantly. They knew he had survived at least 3 previous assassination attempts, including a car bomb in 1985 that killed his brother instead. But they also knew his weakness: family and loyalty to Hezbollah. He attended weddings, funerals, and religious ceremonies, because refusing to do so would signal paranoia that might undermine his authority within the organization. These events were the only times he appeared in public, surrounded by crowds that provided both cover and potential witnesses. Israeli intelligence decided that if they could identify one of these events in advance, they might create an opportunity to eliminate him. The breakthrough came in February 1994 when a Mossad asset inside Hezbollah reported that a senior operative had been killed in fighting near the Israeli border. The operative, Hassan Nasrallah's cousin, was important enough that his funeral would attract senior leadership. The asset indicated that Mughniya would likely attend because the deceased had served under his command, and because refusing to attend would insult Nasrallah, who was rising within Hezbollah's hierarchy and whose support Mughniya needed. The intelligence was passed to Caesarea Unit, Mossad's department responsible for targeted killings abroad. Caesarea's commander, whose identity remains classified, reviewed the information and determined that the funeral presented a viable opportunity. The southern suburbs of Beirut were hostile territory, where Israeli operatives could not move freely without risking capture or death. But a funeral procession would be fluid, chaotic, filled with strangers who had come from different neighborhoods to pay respects. 5 operatives could potentially infiltrate the crowd, eliminate the target, and escape in the confusion before Hezbollah security realized what had happened. The plan was audacious and carried enormous risks. If the operatives were identified before reaching the target, they would be captured and killed. Hezbollah interrogators were not constrained by the legal limitations that Western intelligence agencies faced, and they had experience torturing prisoners to extract information. If the operation failed and operatives were captured, the intelligence damage could be catastrophic. But the opportunity to eliminate Mughniya might not come again. Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin authorized the operation. The decision was made in a secure conference room in Jerusalem, where Rabin, Defense Minister Shimon Peres, and senior Mossad officials reviewed the plan's details. Rabin asked about escape routes, contingency plans if the operation was compromised, and the likelihood of civilian casualties. Caesarea's commander acknowledged the risks, but emphasized that Mughniya's elimination would significantly degrade Hezbollah's operational capabilities and send a message that no one who killed Israelis was beyond reach. Rabin signed the authorization order, adding a handwritten note that the operation should proceed only if field commanders were confident they could extract the operatives successfully. He did not want Israeli agents captured and paraded on television, providing Hezbollah with a propaganda victory. The authorization was transmitted to Caesarea in a coded message that contained no details of the operation, only the confirmation that the Prime Minister had approved it. 5 operatives were selected from Caesarea's most experienced agents. Their names remain classified, protected by Israeli secrecy laws that prevent disclosure of intelligence personnel identities even decades after operations conclude. But intelligence sources describe them as Arabic-speaking Israeli Jews from Middle Eastern backgrounds who could pass as Lebanese in appearance, accent, and cultural behavior. They had operated in Lebanon before, during Israel's 18-year occupation of the South, and understood the risks of working in Hezbollah-controlled territory. The operatives spent 2 weeks preparing. They studied videos of Lebanese funerals, observing how mourners dressed, how they moved, what prayers they recited, and how processions were organized. They rehearsed the operation in a training facility built to replicate Beirut's southern suburbs, with narrow streets, concrete buildings, and crowds of role-players simulating a funeral procession. They practiced moving through crowds without attracting attention, identifying the target amid chaos, executing the kill, and escaping through predetermined routes. The weapons selected were suppressed pistols, loaded with hollow-point ammunition designed to expand on impact, maximizing internal damage while minimizing the risk of bullets passing through the target and hitting bystanders. Each operative carried 2 magazines, enough ammunition to neutralize the target and engage bodyguards if necessary. They also carried small explosive devices designed to create confusion and cover their escape by detonating in alleyways away from the procession. On the morning of February 16, 1994, the operatives entered Lebanon through the Israeli-controlled security zone in the south. They traveled separately, using forged Lebanese identification documents and driving cars registered to addresses in southern Lebanon. Israeli military intelligence had coordinated with Lebanese Christian militia forces who controlled checkpoints leading to Beirut, ensuring the operatives could pass without being stopped for detailed inspection. The funeral was scheduled for 2 p.m. The operatives arrived in the southern suburbs by noon, parking in different locations and making their way on foot to predetermined positions near the mosque where the funeral service would be held. They dressed in dark clothing appropriate for mourning, carrying nothing that would identify them as foreign agents. Each memorized his role in the operation, his position in the procession, and his escape route. They communicated through brief coded phrases spoken into small radios concealed beneath their clothing, confirming positions and readiness. At 1:45 p.m., Hezbollah security forces began arriving at the mosque. Dozens of armed men in civilian clothes established a perimeter, checking identification of anyone who approached and scanning rooftops for threats. The operatives observed from cafes and shops, noting guard positions and identifying gaps in the security cordon where they could slip into the procession. The security was heavy, but not impenetrable. Hezbollah expected threats from Israeli airstrikes or car bombs, not from infiltrators on foot blending into crowds. At 2:00 p.m., the funeral service began inside the mosque. Mourners packed the prayer hall, spilling into the courtyard where loudspeakers broadcast the imam's eulogy. The operatives joined the crowd in the courtyard, kneeling when others knelt, bowing when others bowed, reciting prayers they had memorized phonetically. No one questioned their presence. In a community where funerals were public events, attended by hundreds of people, strangers were expected. At 2:30 p.m., the coffin was carried from the mosque. 6 men hoisted it onto their shoulders, while others held flags and photographs of the deceased. The procession formed, stretching back over 100 meters as mourners fell into line. The operatives positioned themselves in the middle of the procession, close enough to reach the target, but not so close that they would be near the heaviest concentration of bodyguards. Imad Mughniya appeared 10 minutes after the procession began. He had been inside the mosque, but emerged from a side entrance, joining the procession after it was already moving. This was his standard security protocol, never arriving at the beginning of events when security forces might be most alert, always joining after crowds had formed and attention had shifted to the main activities. He wore dark clothing like other mourners and walked without bodyguards immediately beside him, understanding that obvious security would identify him to surveillance. But the operatives recognized him immediately. They had studied his photographs for weeks, memorizing the shape of his face, his walk, his mannerisms. One operative transmitted a brief radio message. Target confirmed. The others acknowledged with double clicks on their transmit buttons, confirming they were in position and ready to execute. The procession moved through streets barely wide enough for the crowd. Buildings pressed close, their facades scarred by bullet holes from previous conflicts. Children watched from windows. Women stood in doorways. Shopkeepers observed from behind metal shutters. The operatives moved with the crowd, chanting prayers, appearing no different from any other mourners. They let the distance between them and Mughniya close gradually, not rushing, not forcing their way forward in ways that might attract attention. The narrow street where the killing would occur was 3 blocks ahead. The operatives knew the location from their reconnaissance and planning. It was a bottleneck where the procession would slow and compress, where buildings on both sides created confined space that would limit escape routes for bodyguards, where the operatives could strike and then disappear into alleyways that led to pre-positioned vehicles. At 3:15 p.m., the procession entered the killing ground. The street narrowed to barely 4 meters wide. The crowd compressed, bodies pressed together. The operatives were now less than 10 meters from Mughniya, close enough to see his profile, close enough to observe that he was speaking quietly to a man beside him, close enough to act. The lead operative transmitted, "Execute." 3 operatives drew their weapons simultaneously. The suppressed pistols made soft clicking sounds, barely audible over the noise of the crowd. The first operative fired twice, both rounds striking Mugnia in the upper back. The second operative fired 3 times, hitting him in the neck and head. The third operative engaged a bodyguard who reached for a weapon, putting 2 rounds into his chest before he could draw. Mugnia fell forward into the people ahead of him. Blood sprayed across their clothing. For 3 seconds, no one understood what had happened. The sounds of the shots were too quiet to register as gunfire. People thought someone had collapsed from heat or grief. Then they saw the blood, the wounds, the weapons in the operatives' hands. Chaos erupted. People screamed, some running toward the gunfire, others away from it. The coffin was dropped as its bearers scattered. Bodyguards drew weapons, scanning the crowd for threats, but unable to identify who had fired. The operatives were already moving, pushing through the panicked crowd toward the alleyways they had scouted. 2 detonated small explosive devices in side streets, creating loud bangs that drew security forces' attention away from their actual escape routes. Within 60 seconds of the shooting, the operatives had disappeared into the maze of back streets and alleys that crisscrossed the southern suburbs. They split up, each heading toward different vehicles. Behind them, Hezbollah's security forces were securing the scene, trying to control the crowd, searching for suspects who were no longer there. Imad Mugnia was dead before medics reached him. 3 bullets had struck vital areas, causing massive trauma that would have been fatal even with immediate surgical intervention. His bodyguards carried his body into a nearby building, refusing to let Lebanese police or ambulance crews approach until Hezbollah's own medical personnel arrived. They knew that Israeli intelligence often tried to confirm successful assassinations through communication intercepts or surveillance of medical responses, and they did not want to provide that confirmation. But the truth could not be hidden. Within hours, Hezbollah announced that a senior commander had been killed in a martyrdom operation, their euphemism for assassination. They did not initially identify Mugnia by name, understanding that doing so would confirm his death to Israeli intelligence. But word spread through the southern suburbs, through the networks of fighters and supporters who had known him, and by evening, Lebanese media were reporting that Imad Mugnia, one of Hezbollah's most feared operatives, had been killed by unknown gunmen. The operatives reached the Israeli-controlled zone by 6:01 p.m., crossing back into Israel through the same checkpoints they had used that morning. They were debriefed immediately, providing detailed accounts of the operation, identifying what had worked and what had not, and assessing whether any operational security had been compromised. Mossad analysts reviewed the reports and concluded that the operation had been a complete success. The target was dead. All operatives had escaped without injury, and no Israeli fingerprints had been left at the scene that could definitively prove Israeli involvement. But something was wrong. Within days, Hezbollah released photographs of Mugnia's body at his funeral. The man in the photographs was not the man the operatives had killed. He was similar in appearance, wore similar clothing, and had been in approximately the correct position within the procession. But detailed analysis of facial structure, confirmed through comparison with known photographs of Mugnia, revealed that Mossad had killed the wrong man. The victim was Mustafa Dirani, one of Mugnia's bodyguards, and a senior Hezbollah operative in his own right. He had been walking beside Mugnia during the procession, speaking with him, matching his movements so closely that from 10 meters away in a moving crowd, the operatives had mistaken him for the target. Mugnia himself had been walking several meters away, partially obscured by other mourners, and had survived the attack. The realization was devastating. Mossad had executed a near-perfect operation, infiltrating hostile territory, striking in the middle of a funeral procession, and escaping without casualties. But they had failed to achieve the primary objective because of a targeting error made in the chaos of a moving crowd. The mistake echoed the 1973 Lillehammer disaster, when Mossad had killed an innocent Moroccan waiter. Killing was not as catastrophic, since the victim was a legitimate military target. But the failure to kill Mugnia meant the operation's strategic purpose had not been achieved. Within Mossad, the operation was classified as a partial success. A senior Hezbollah operative had been eliminated, degrading the organization's capabilities. Israeli audacity had been demonstrated, sending the message that Mossad could reach into Hezbollah's stronghold and kill senior leaders, even when surrounded by security forces. But the primary target remained alive, more paranoid than ever, and now aware that Israel was willing to risk operatives in funeral processions to eliminate him. Mugnia would survive another 14 years, continuing to plan operations against Israeli and Western targets. He became even more careful, attending fewer public events, employing multiple body doubles, and traveling in convoys with electronic countermeasures against tracking devices. Israeli intelligence would try multiple times to kill him, but each attempt failed. He seemed to possess an uncanny ability to sense danger, to detect surveillance, to identify traps before they closed. His death would finally come in February 2008 in Damascus, Syria, when a car bomb exploded outside a shopping complex in the Kafr Sousa neighborhood. The bomb was placed in the spare tire of a Mitsubishi Pajero parked beside Mugnia's vehicle. When he left a reception and entered his car, the bomb detonated, killing him instantly. Syrian authorities blamed Israel, which maintained its standard policy of neither confirming nor denying responsibility. But Western intelligence sources confirmed that Mossad and CIA had cooperated in tracking Mugnia to Damascus and executing the operation that finally eliminated him after 25 years of hunting. The 1994 funeral operation remains classified. Israeli government has never officially acknowledged it occurred. Hezbollah has never publicly identified the operatives who killed Dirani. The only evidence the operation happened comes from intelligence sources who spoke to journalists under conditions of anonymity, providing details that matched patterns of previous Mossad operations and explaining outcomes that otherwise made little sense. What the operation revealed was both the capabilities and limitations of targeted killing as a counterterrorism strategy. Mossad demonstrated that with sufficient resources, planning, and willingness to accept risk, intelligence services could strike targets anywhere, even in hostile territory surrounded by armed enemies. But the operation also demonstrated that even the most sophisticated intelligence agencies make mistakes, that targeting errors occur even after extensive planning, and that eliminating individual leaders rarely stops terrorist organizations from continuing operations. Hezbollah did not collapse after Dirani's death. It did not even slow down. New commanders were promoted, new operations were planned, new attacks were executed. The organization proved resilient because it was structured as a movement rather than a hierarchy dependent on individual leaders. Killing one commander, even a senior one, simply created opportunity for another to rise. The cycle continued, each death feeding the next generation's commitment to resistance. For the operatives who executed the funeral operation, the psychological cost was measured in the knowledge that they had risked their lives to kill the wrong man. Intelligence operatives are trained to compartmentalize, to separate mission objectives from personal feelings, to accept that operations sometimes fail despite best efforts. But the funeral operation's failure was not due to poor planning or inadequate preparation. It was due to a split-second targeting decision made in the chaos of a moving crowd, a decision that could not be reversed once bullets were fired. The operation became a case study within Mossad, analyzed in training courses for new operatives as an example of how even well-planned operations can fail due to factors beyond planners' control. Instructors emphasize the importance of positive target identification before engaging, the dangers of making assumptions about target location based on incomplete information, and the need for escape plans that accounted for the possibility that operations might not achieve their objectives. But the operation also reinforced a darker truth about intelligence work, that sometimes the only way to reach high-value targets is to accept risks that conventional military operations would reject as unacceptable. That infiltrating enemy territory, operating without support, and striking in environments where discovery means death is the price intelligence agencies pay for achieving objectives that conventional forces cannot accomplish. The funeral operation was not Mossad's most successful assassination. That distinction belongs to operations that achieved their objectives cleanly, eliminating targets without collateral damage or operational mistakes. But it was perhaps one of the most audacious, a demonstration that Israeli intelligence was willing to send operatives into the heart of enemy territory, to stand among armed fighters who would kill them without hesitation if discovered, and to strike even when surrounded by people who wanted them dead. Whether that audacity was justified by strategic objectives remains debated among intelligence professionals. Critics argue that targeted killings rarely achieve lasting strategic effects, that they create martyrs who inspire new generations of fighters, and that they perpetuate cycles of violence rather than ending them. Supporters argue that eliminating dangerous individuals prevents specific attacks, degrades enemy capabilities, and demonstrates resolve that deters future aggression. What is indisputable is that the funeral operation revealed something fundamental about modern intelligence warfare, that the line between success and failure can be measured in meters and seconds, that even the most carefully planned operations depend on factors beyond planners' control, and that operatives who accept missions in hostile territory do so knowing that mistakes can be fatal, not just to themselves, but to the objectives they risk their lives to achieve. The funeral procession that wound through Beirut's southern suburbs in February 1994 buried one man and created another martyr. Mustafa Dirani's death was mourned by Hezbollah supporters who saw him as a hero killed by Israeli assassins. His funeral, days later, attracted thousands, becoming another demonstration of defiance against Israeli operations in Lebanon. Imad Mugniya attended that funeral too, standing among the mourners, more careful than before, surrounded by bodyguards, aware that he had survived an assassination attempt through pure chance. And somewhere in Israel, 5 operatives who had risked everything to eliminate him returned to ordinary lives, carrying the knowledge that they had come within meters of one of history's most successful assassinations, only to fail because of a targeting error that could not have been prevented. They would live with that knowledge for the rest of their lives, along with the understanding that in the world of intelligence operations, there are no perfect successes, only missions that achieve enough of their objectives to justify the risks taken to execute them.
And that was the Mossad. Back in a minute.
Nothing worth doing ever came easy.
Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation.
Never, ever quit. Never quit. Adversity makes you stronger. Don't give in, don't back down, and never stop doing what you know is right.
They want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedoms. They're not coming after me, they're coming after you, and I just happen to be standing in their way.
When they couldn't beat him, they tried to bankrupt him.
President Trump is back in a New York City court.
When that didn't work, they tried to put him in federal prison.
Raided by the FBI.
When that didn't work, they even tried to kill him.
He just tried to kill President Trump.
Donald Trump still stands, ready to fight, ready to win, and ready to make America great again.
This is Donald Trump's house, brother.
This election, we all get to choose. I'm going to choose
defeat inflation quickly, and we will make America affordable again. I will cut your energy costs in half. It's time for the working man and woman to finally catch a break. We are going to bring back the American dream, bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. When I'm back in the White House, we will restore world peace, and it will be again peace through strength. I will launch the largest deportation program in American history. I will put these vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail or kick them the hell out of our country. November 5th, 2024 will be Liberation Day in America. We all salute the same great American flag. Our best days are yet to come. Together, we will make America great again. America is a land of heroes, a place where greatness is born, where destinies are forged, and where legends come to life. This is the home of Thomas Edison and Teddy Roosevelt, of many great generals, including Washington, Pershing, Patton, and MacArthur. This is the home of Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, Amelia Earhart, Harriet Tubman, the Wright brothers, Neil Armstrong, and so many more. This is the country where children learn names like Wyatt Earp, Davy Crockett, and Annie Oakley. This is the place where the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth and where Texas patriots made their last stand at the Alamo. The American nation was carved out of the vast frontier by the toughest, strongest, fiercest, and most determined men and women ever to walk on the face of the earth. Our ancestors braved the unknown, tamed the wilderness, settled the Wild West, lifted millions from poverty, disease, and hunger, vanquished tyranny and fascism, ushered the world to new heights of science and medicine, laid down the railroads, dug out the canals, raised up the skyscrapers. Our ancestors built the most exceptional republic ever to exist in all of human history, and we are making it greater than ever before. This is our glorious and magnificent inheritance. We are Americans. We are pioneers. We are the pathfinders. We settled the new world. We built the modern world, and we change history forever by embracing the eternal truth that everyone is made equal by the hand of Almighty God. America is the place where anything can happen. America is the place where anyone can rise. And here, on this land, on this soil, on this continent, the most incredible dreams come true. This nation is our canvas, and this country is our masterpiece. We look at tomorrow and see unlimited frontiers just waiting to be explored. Our brightest discoveries are not yet known. Our most thrilling stories are not yet told. Our grandest journeys are not yet made. The American age, the American epic, the American adventure has only just begun. Our spirit is still young. The sun is still rising. God's grace is still shining. And my fellow Americans, the best is yet to come. This is a movement like we've never seen in the history of our country.
Wisconsin is Trump country.
And that's what this fight is all about. We're taking on the failed political establishment and restoring government of, by, and for the people. It's the people. You're the people. You won the election.
We love this country. We love Donald Trump.
Promises made, promises kept.
We support President Trump.
This is epic.
Donald Trump is our president.
With every last ounce of heart and hope and sweat and soul, we are going to make our stand. We are going to stand for liberty. We are going to stand for justice. We are going to stand for freedom. And we are going to stand for the sacred rights given to us by the hand of Almighty God. You joined our movement, the greatest movement in the history of our country. You protected your family. You defended your dignity. You recaptured your destiny. And you took back your country with that great election 2.5 years ago. We are one united movement, one united people, and one United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
You have always been loyal to this nation. Now you finally have a president who is loyal to you. Every day between now and November 2020, we are going to keep on working, we are going to keep on fighting, and we are going to keep on winning, winning, winning. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you. If I give you one message to hold in your hearts today, it's this. Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. Relish the opportunity to be an outsider because it's the outsiders who change the world and who make a real and lasting difference. The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. You must keep pushing forward. Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. The Washington establishment and the financial and media corporations that fund it exist for only one reason: to protect and enrich itself. In America, we don't worship government, we worship God. My administration will always support and defend your religious liberty. There is nothing that we cannot do. There is absolutely nothing we cannot match. There is no challenge that you will let us down. You will never let us down. The people of Ohio will never let us down. This towering American spirit has prevailed over every challenge and lifted us to the summit of human endeavor. At no time before have voters faced a clearer choice between two parties, two visions, two philosophies, or two agendas. This election will decide whether we save the American dream or whether we allow a socialist agenda to demolish our cherished destiny. Your vote will decide whether we protect law-abiding Americans or whether we give free rein to violent anarchists, agitators, and criminals who threaten our citizens. And this election will decide whether we will defend the American way of life or whether we will allow a radical movement
to completely dismantle and destroy it. Our radical Democrat opponents are driven by hatred, prejudice, and rage. They want to destroy you, and they want to destroy our country as we know it.
4 years ago, we took a wrong turn and lost our purpose. We lost the strength that makes Americans who we are. If we dared to speak the truth, it was called hate speech, and our values were labeled shameful. That's when everything we care about fell apart. We surrendered our borders, our paychecks, and our courage. Our patriotism was called toxic. Men could beat up women and win medals, but there was no prize for the guy who got up every day to do his job. Now we're being asked to settle for the way things are. And we're wondering if America can make a comeback. We can, because we've done it before. When we get knocked down, we don't stay down. We get up again. We fight. We fight. We fight.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message. What will we do with this moment? How will we be remembered? Look at the opportunities before us.
This election really isn't about the left versus the right. It's about we the people choosing our government and the choice between freedom versus tyranny.
Nobody has a chronic disease burden like we have. Why are we allowing this to happen to our children? Ultimately, the only thing that will save our country is if we choose to love our kids more than we hate each other.
What is going on here is deeper than politics. It is deeply spiritual. We are being called to rise above the hatred and the fear and the evil.
We need to remember above and beyond that we must love our neighbors, that we must treat other people as we hope to be treated.
You want to be a rebel? You want to be a hippie? You want to stick it to the man? Show up on your college campus and try calling yourself a conservative.
America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing.
Don't you want healthy children? Don't you want a president that's going to make America healthy again?
I come to you today as a former Democrat. I will be a first-time Trump voter tonight.
People dreamed this country, and it's the people who are making America great again.
Thank you. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.